I recently saw an ad for the Foo Fighters horror film Studio 666. Well, I haven't seen it, and I'd love to know if you guys checked it out. Let me know in the comment section below. I never understood whether bands did these projects purely for vanity or because they thought it made financial sense. It reminded me of what Metallica undertook in the 2010s that resulted in the band losing millions of dollars. That's what we're going to explore in today's video. In 2015, a new book on Metallica titled Into the Black was released, whose authors Paul Brannigan and Ian Winwood made some surprising claims about the financial situation the band found themselves in. Metallica would take on several different projects during the 2010s, including their much maligned record with Lou Reed titled Lulu. If you guys want an in-depth look at the album, I've included it at the end of this video. I've also included a chapter marker for it as well. I saw a few people requested it, so there you go. Another project that the band undertook was the Orion Music Festival and a movie called Through the Never. The album Lulu sold a paltry 33,000 copies in total over several years after its release. For comparison, around the same time the Black Album was still selling several thousand copies a month, and their previous record 2008's Death Magnetic sold around 500,000 copies in just its first week out. Keep in mind Lulu wasn't done as a cash grab and seemed to be more of an artistic endeavor, and it single-handedly wasn't what cost Metallica a lot of money. Metallica's other business venture would be the music festival scene. The band spearheaded a festival called the Orion Music and More in 2012 in Atlantic City and 2013 in Detroit. The bill was pretty eclectic, not being strictly metal both years, including the likes of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Eric Church, Gaslight Anthem, and Modest Mouse to name a few. Frontman James Hetfield would talk to Metallica's fan club magazine So What in 2015, saying, "I'm so glad we did Orion. Those two we did were fun. We got some bands out there in front of people, our fans mainly, and that was the whole idea. If it would have broken even, we'd still be doing it, but we lost millions both times. We can't do that. At some point, business comes into play." And Hetfield would go on to speculate that perhaps the bill was too eclectic for some to spend their hard-earned money on. This brings us to Metallica's third business venture, their film Through the Never, which cost around $32 million to make. Despite having a nearly 80% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, the film brought in under $8 million in box office returns. The authors of the book called the movie, and I quote, "a horrible misjudgment." It's hard to imagine that at least one band member, and let's be honest, we're talking about James Hetfield here, thinking what the F have we got ourselves into. Quite how that script ever got greenlit is an unfathomable mystery they'd write. Guitarist Kirk Hammett would tell Pulsive Radio how the band poured a lot of energy into the film, adding, "It's amazing because other than our fans, no one else was interested in the movie." Meanwhile, drummer Lars Ulrich would tell Rolling Stone that the success of their 2004 documentary, Some Kind of Monster, saying, "It seemed with Some Kind of Monster there was a group of people that fell in love with the film that were not necessarily Metallica fans. I think that there was a shot at this happening with Through the Never." On top of all these projects, the band also had staff salaries, they had crew members on retainer, and they had an entertainment company to account for, and at the end of the day, you've got a lot of overhead. The authors would chalk up Metallica's constant touring and an 8-year gap between proper studio albums as their way of recouping their losses. If I were to ask you to name your least favorite Metallica album, you'd probably say 2003 Saint Anger. Maybe some of you'd say 1996's Load or 97's Reload. And of course, I'm sure a lot of you would say 2011's mind-boggling Lulu record, which saw the band collaborate with Lou Reed. 2011's Lulu was a confusing direction for Metallica, considering the band had almost struggled for 2 decades to win back a lot of their old fans, with the band seeming to stray further and further away from their thrash roots, starting with 1991's self-titled Black album. It was only recently in 2008 that the band won some of their old fans back with the release of Death Magnetic. 3 years later, out of the blue, the band dropped Lulu. Released on November 1st, 2011, the record was quickly slammed by critics and fans for just being strange. The structure of the album can best be described as what would happen if Metallica was jamming together and a senile old man walked in and talked over their music. Another good comparison I've heard is that it sounds like Grandpa Simpson yelling over construction. Now, jokes aside, what's funny is that Metallica fans seemed more upset about Lulu than they did about 2003 Saint Anger, that saw the band go for a very stripped-down sound and lose the guitar solos. And listening to Lulu, it's almost as if there's no structure or thought to anything, but that's exactly the approach that Metallica took. There's a very free type of approach to recording and writing the songs. Even the lyrics left a lot of people scratching their heads, especially on songs like The View with lyrics like "I am the table," which would cause countless James Hetfield memes to be created, and some fans even listed a table as one of James Hetfield's professions on Wikipedia for a short period of time. Now, the story of the strange collaboration dates back to 2009 when Metallica joined Lou Reed in performing Sweet Jane and Velvet Underground's White Light, White Heat together at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's 25th anniversary concert. And feeling like they had some chemistry that should be further explored, the pair started talking about working on a future project. It was originally Metallica's intention that they would record some of Reed's unreleased songs, and the group of songs that they were looking at working on were originally slated for a project titled Lulu, which was based on two controversial 20th century plays. In the plays, the main character of Lulu becomes the Lady of the Night, who's sold into slavery and killed by Jack the Ripper. And Metallica's drummer Lars Ulrich would reveal to The Guardian, "It offered us an incredible opportunity to do something that had no boundaries around it. We would concentrate on playing, and that's why it seemed so effortless. We've never been part of the particular movement or adhered to a particular style that people want from us. And turning your back on structure, you're opening up a world of possibilities. For Metallica to have the luxury of that kind of impulsiveness with somebody who speaks their own language was a reward in itself." Now, Metallica and Reed started working together at the band's HQ studios in San Rafael, California in April of 2011, and 3 months later in June, they'd finished almost an hour and a half of music. In the same interview with The Telegraph, Lou Reed would say, "I think we did a sensual thing. Instead of writing the trash that is out there, I want to do something on that level, always. I came close to it on Berlin, pretty close, but this one for me from the beginning to end, this is it." The fans eagerly anticipating the collaboration would get their first taste of the new album on September 27, 2011, when the first single, The View, came out. And fans soon started to realize this wasn't going to be a normal record or a proper follow-up to 2008's Death Magnetic, and the commercial performance showed that. Lulu debuted at number 36 on the Billboard 200 charts with only 13,000 copies being sold during its first week, making it Metallica's worst performing release since 1984's Ride the Lightning. Now, ironically, it was Lou Reed's highest charting release since 1974's Sally Can't Dance, which peaked at number 10. And the promotion for the record seemed like an afterthought compared to Metallica's past releases. Metallica and Lou Reed performed 5 songs together in Cologne, Germany for a promotional concert including Iced Honey, The View, Mistress Dead, Dragon, and Junior Dad. And the pair also performed Iced Honey on the British TV show Later with Jules Holland, and a video for the lead single The View was also released, but that was basically all the promotion that was done for the record. And while Metallica fans were mostly disappointed with the release, one major celebrity who was a fan of the collaboration was the late David Bowie, who felt it was one of Reed's greatest records. In fact, Lou Reed's widow, Laurie Anderson, spoke at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2015, and she talked about Lulu and Bowie's reaction to it, saying one of his last projects was his album with Metallica, and this was really challenging, and I have a hard time with it, she said. There's many struggles and so much radiance. After Lou's death, David Bowie made a big point of saying to me, "Listen, this is Lou's greatest work. This is his masterpiece. Just wait. It will be like Berlin. It will take everyone a while to catch up." Now, looking back at Lulu, Lars Ulrich was surprised just how bitter Metallica fans reacted to it, saying it was a little bit more spiteful than probably anybody was prepared for because it got very personal, especially against Lou. He is such a sweet man and has such a soft, gentle side. I'm aware of the fact that sometimes he doesn't necessarily come across to journalists as someone who has a difficult time with it, but I primarily know Lou from making music and hanging out with him and eating dinner with him and playing with him, and he's a very gentle soul. He's a very sweet, innocent, almost childlike approach to a lot of things, so when people start hammering him the way they did, it was a little surprising and a little difficult. But Ulrich would also add that he's proud of the record, saying he accepts that it was perhaps too far out of people's comfort zones, including Metallica fans, saying, "I understand it's not easy. I understand when Metallica sit and do something impulsive like riffing on the floor well outside of traditional sound structures. Then you've got Lou Reed borderline speaking or reciting very abstract poetry about German bohemian characters from 150 years ago. I understand that can be a difficult thing for some people to embrace." But at the same time, Ulrich also stated that projects like Lulu are essential for Metallica to continue to develop and explore as artists, saying, "Whether people don't like it or not is really secondary to the fact that they've got to let us run amok once in a while. To sit there and be what everybody wants us to do would kill us, and I don't want that." So let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Lulu in the comments section below. And as always, if you guys have suggestions for future topics, let me know in the comment section as well.